First of all, that's overstated by 5.1 million. That is not attributed to this bill. It is simply
it's a combination. That's true.
No. You all had a scheduled expiration of Obamacare subsidies, and you did not extend that when you were in charge. 5.1 million, 1.4 million illegal aliens on Medicaid. All right, and there are work requirements. And our goal is to get more money to children and mothers.
Really? Your goal is to get more money to children, and working people. Really? Come on. Do you know how many people, and I was surprised to hear this, I don't know if you know it or not, how many people lose their jobs every year, quit, get fired or whatever? Do you have any idea?
Well, there's something called the quits rate, and so when the job market is strong, more people quit.
But yeah, I was surprised that I just researched this. I don't know. Do you happen to know?
I don't know the number.
I was surprised. Would it be shocking to you? It was to me. 20 million people leave their jobs a year. Doesn't shock you, right? It's a big labor force, right?
Yep.
So somebody leaves the job, maybe they move, maybe something happens in their lives, right? We have a lot of transition in the labor market, correct?
Maybe they get a better job.
Right, exactly. Maybe they do. Or maybe they have to stay home, their wife gets sick, whatever, we don't know. But 20 million people lose their jobs in a given year, leave their jobs in a given year. Are those people lazy? What happens when I leave my job and maybe I have to move to another state to take care of my ill mother? And I desperately need Medicaid. Am I too lazy now to be able to get Medicaid?
I think that's a mischaracterization of the work requirement.
Really? Well, I'm not quite so sure it is. I don't. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
What happens when one senator asks the same question over and over, and the Treasury Secretary never seems to give the answer he's looking for? That's exactly what unfolded in a tense Senate hearing that quickly turned into one of the most talked about exchanges on Capitol Hill. The debate covered Medicaid, tax policy, billionaire tax breaks, work requirements, and even tariffs. Whether you agree with Senator Bernie Sanders or Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, this hearing raised major questions about the direction of America's economy. Before we break it all down, make sure you subscribe to the Blue Brief, leave a like, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest political coverage. Today's hearing wasn't just another political argument. It was a direct clash over two very different visions for America's economy. Senator Bernie Sanders repeatedly challenged Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent over legislation that Sanders argued would significantly reduce Medicaid spending while extending tax benefits that he said primarily favored the wealthiest Americans.
Help me out here. My understanding is the Trump administration has, I think, 13 billionaires in office right now, leading government agencies. Is that about right, do you think?
I have no idea, Senator.
I think that's what the number is. Do you think it's a coincidence, given the large number of billionaires in the Trump administration, that this particular piece of legislation would provide $235 billion in tax breaks to the top 0.2% by expanding the exemptions in the estate tax?
Senator, I will tell you that when the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act passed, my tax rate went up.
Well, I don't know your exact situation, but I can tell you. Tell me about how many people do you think are in the top 0.2%?
Sorry?
Number of people in the top 0.2% who would benefit from this particular $235 billion tax break.
Well, I know the top 10% is now paying 7%.
That's not the question.
Of the total tax.
My question is, why do you think at a time of unprecedented income and wealth inequality, when people like yourself economically have never ever had it so good, why do you think it's a good idea to cut Medicaid for low-income and working-class people by $700 billion to give $235 billion in tax breaks to the very, very, very richest people in this country, perhaps a few hundred families? Please justify that and tell me about that.
Well, Senator, I don't know, but the Democrats had the trifecta, and there was no tax increase or wealth tax on billionaires. You choose.
I'm not talking about a tax.
You chose not
Mr.
to do
Bessent,
that,
I am not talking about a wealth tax. Explain. A few hundred of the wealthiest families in this country, $235 billion tax break. Explain to the American people why you think that's a great idea.
I think that this will increase small businesses substantially. That most small businesses, they are...
Has zero to do, come on, you're smarter than that. This is the top 0.2%. This is not a mom and pop store. These are multi-billionaires, and the savings go to their kids after they pass away. This is nothing more than a gift to billionaires in this country.
Well, sir, that's just not correct, because the top 10% paid a bigger share of taxes after TCJA.
I'm talking about one provision in this. I don't want to argue with you about taxes in general. One provision, few hundred families, $235 billion in tax breaks. You can't justify that because morally it is totally unjustifiable. Let me ask you another question. If you guys want to cut $1 trillion in Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act, the estimate from CBO, I believe, is that over 15 million people lose their health insurance. Yale University and the University of Pennsylvania estimated that when you throw that many low-income and working-class people off of health care, some 50,000 people a year will die. Tell me why you think it's a good idea to give tax breaks to billionaires and allow 50,000 low-income and working-class people to die unnecessarily?
Senator, first of all,
Sanders framed the issue in straightforward terms. He argued that reducing healthcare spending for low-income Americans while expanding estate tax exemptions for the wealthiest families was unfair, and asked the Treasury Secretary several times to explain why that trade-off made sense. Bessent did not accept Sanders' premise. Instead, he pointed to broader tax policy, arguing that higher-income Americans already pay a substantial share of federal taxes. He also noted that previous administrations and Congresses had opportunities to pursue different tax policies, but chose not to. One of the most striking moments came when Sanders focused on the estate tax provision. He insisted it would benefit only a very small number of extremely wealthy families, and rejected the argument that it was primarily designed to help small businesses. Bessent maintained that the proposal would support economic growth and defended the administration's broader approach to taxation, though Sanders repeatedly redirected the discussion back to his central question. The hearing then shifted to health care. Sanders cited estimates suggesting that millions could lose health insurance under the proposed changes, and referenced academic research examining the possible health effects of reduced insurance coverage. Bessent disputed those projections. He argued that some estimates include the expiration of Affordable Care Act subsidies, and said the administration's Medicaid work requirements were intended to focus assistance on those who qualify while encouraging employment. That led to another memorable exchange. Sanders pointed out that millions of Americans leave jobs every year for many different reasons, including layoffs, relocation, caring for family members, or changing careers.
Yeah, my main concern is, I think, what people are looking at the economy. The first 100 days, lowest stock market since Richard Nixon, not usually a measure people are shooting for. On tariffs, the fact that last year we had an effective rate about 2.5%. I think the Yale Budget Lab, and I believe you went to Yale, has said that effective rate is closer to 28%, the highest since 1901. I know that some of that's changed because the tariffs are on again, off again, some on again, some off again. Somewhat chaotic, I believe, as your term is, what, Crazy Ivan style. I compare them to how a monkey throws dung. You're not exactly sure where they're going to land. And that's the concern I have as a small business owner, and I know Ms. Luzenkamp-Perez is as well. I've got small businesses really worried. You made a comment about while cargo volumes have dropped 60%, you see this as a temporary detox. But for a small business that's getting by day to day, that's much bigger. You talked about Main Street We want to finally focus on Main Street, not Wall Street. I think you were at a global investor conference in Beverly Hills yesterday. That's the cocktail party where you mentioned the crazy Ivan theory. And before that, you were at a JP Morgan Chase World Bank private investor summit. All those things are not Main Street, right? Main Street is an auto body repair, a specialty printer. So my concern is on the tariffs. Who pays tariffs, Mr. Secretary? No. Answer the questions I asked, please. I only have 5 minutes. Who pays tariffs?
Sorry, well.
Who pays tariffs?
Sorry.
Mr. Secretary, please.
Excuse me.
The question is very simply, who pays tariffs, Mr. Chairman? I'd like him to answer that question.
Well,
He wants to answer other questions.
well, Congressman, if the exporters, dislike tariffs so much, why wouldn't they, if, I think what you're trying to get me to say.
Did you remember the question? I'm not sure you did. Who pays tariffs?
That it's a very complicated question.
Reclaiming my time. People pay tariffs, right? Reclaiming my time, Mr. Secretary. Reclaiming my time, Mr. Secretary. Reclaiming my time. You clearly aren't going to answer it. I'm not going to waste my time having you go, Mr. Secretary, Mr. Chairman, I asked reclaiming my time.
Tariffs.
Mr. Chairman, and I asked to reclaim my time. Did I not? No, I said reclaiming my time because he's clearly not answering it. So, yeah, so as a small business owner, and unfortunately I'd like that time back since you failed to recognize me for 30 seconds. So I just recently from one of my suppliers got the tariff surcharge on things. And in addition to the tariff surcharge, guess what else got raised? American-made walnut plaques. That has nothing to do with tariffs, but companies take advantage and do that. So right now, we are getting screwed right and left because of the indiscriminate use of tariffs. That's the reality for Main Street. And you go off to Beverly Hills for private investor conferences and talk about crazy Ivan theories. Answer that. What is the crazy Ivan theory of tariffs that you mentioned at the summit?
Well, first of all, sir, I've had meetings with more than 50 small lenders. So I want to clarify that. I would also say that in game theory, strategic uncertainty, of which you seem to like the name Crazy Ivan.
Well, it's your words, correct? Didn't you use Crazy Ivan at the?
Well, you've used it 5 times. And
Answer the question, Mr. Chairman.
I am saying the strategic uncertainty is part of negotiations. That should we say, here's what we'll accept. Please take this.
Okay, I've got your answer. Thank you. I'm going to reclaim my time again. So for a small business, we don't have that luxury, right? When the ports are empty in California and we can't get goods and people are stocking up for Christmas goods, Crazy Ivan is great for, please don't take this offense, really rich people like you, but for people like me, it's not, right? That's what makes small businesses fail. That's what makes people lose their jobs. That's what makes the stock market tank. So I'll ask one more time, who pays tariffs?
Sir, the history would show that it is a complicated mix of who pays the tariffs over various times.
So that's exactly the problem. If your answer, and you are a very educated person, you have a very impressive bio, cannot answer the question who pays tariffs because you won't answer that, and you say it's a complicated issue. It's not complicated. Consumers pay Trump's tariff tax. That's the reality. And I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman, but I do think next time if I ask to yield back, I would appreciate having my time yield back.
He questioned whether work requirements could unintentionally affect people during temporary periods of unemployment. Bessent responded that Sanders was oversimplifying how the work requirements would actually operate, maintaining that the administration's goal was to improve the program rather than reduce access for those who truly need it. The conversation didn't stop there. Another lawmaker turned the hearing toward tariffs, repeatedly asking a simple question: who ultimately pays tariffs? Rather than giving a direct yes or no answer, Bessent explained that economists generally view the effects of tariffs as more complicated, with costs potentially shared among exporters, importers, businesses, and consumers, depending on market conditions. His questioner argued that consumers and small businesses often end up paying higher prices and criticized the uncertainty surrounding current trade policy. The discussion highlighted how complicated economic policy can become once it moves beyond campaign slogans. Supporters of the administration argue that tax reductions, regulatory changes, and trade negotiations will strengthen long-term economic growth, encourage investment, and create jobs. Critics argue the costs may fall disproportionately on lower-income Americans, while benefits flow primarily to higher-income households. Those competing perspectives were on full display throughout the hearing. What made this exchange stand out wasn't necessarily that either side changed the other's mind. Instead, both stayed firmly focused on their core arguments, presenting two very different philosophies about taxes, healthcare, and the government's role in the economy. As always, these debates continue both inside Congress and across the country, and many of the policies discussed remain the subject of ongoing legislative negotiations. Whatever your perspective, hearings like this offer a window into how elected officials and administration officials defend their priorities under intense public scrutiny. What do you think? Did Senator Bernie Sanders ask the questions that needed answers, or do you think Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent made the stronger case? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Blue Brief, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest coverage of the biggest political stories shaping America. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.